Well, good morning. Thank you all very much for joining us today. My name is Audrey Rosenfeld, and I'm the owner of Fully Effective Employees, your employee assistance program. You have received this invitation because you are our client of ours through Drug Free Business. So we are separate companies. Drug Free Business does your drug testing, and Fully Effective Employees is your EAP program. And you can reach us at one of our numbers below. We have a toll-free number and a local number in Bellevue, Washington. And our website address is also below. And I will explain in more detail later how you can access our website. I'm going to go through our training. If you have any questions, my colleague, Chris Casaza, will be taking your questions, and we would love to be able to answer those at the end of this training. And if you have anything specific that you'd like to ask me directly, you can feel free to email me or give me a call, and I'd be happy to answer those questions for you as well. So the objectives of our training today are to give you a full understanding of your EAP program, Fully Effective Employees, how it works, and how you as managers and supervisors can use the EAP to help you with your employees. We're going to talk about how to identify and intervene with employee personal and work performance issues, and discuss how you can use the EAP as part of your drug testing program. So Fully Effective Employees has been providing EAP services to local area businesses since 1976. We're in fact the oldest EAP, and the first, I should say, EAP in the state of Washington. Our primary EAP service is not another program. We're not affiliated with family service agencies, payroll companies, or your health insurance company. And that's really great because a lot of EAPs are embedded in people's health insurance. And when that happens, they're not really incentivized to have employees use the program because it costs money. But because we have a staffing program where our staff work directly and only for the EAP program, we're happy to help you increase the utilization of your program, and as many people as who want to use the program can. Our staff counselors do all of the EAP work ourselves, so we don't contract with independent contractors who may be counselors in private practice without knowledge or expertise in dealing with drug and alcohol issues or workplace issues. Our staff are very well versed and trained in all of those areas. Now, the EAP is a work site-based program that was developed many, many years ago to help employees be able to resolve work and personal related problems, and knowing how to make it easy to use and having somewhere to go to get some initial help where they don't have to miss work to do that. EAPs are confidential. We only report to you a utilization report if you've had utilization during the year, with the number of people that have used the program, the general idea about the types of problems that people have had, for example, emotional, relationship, or family, and the number of contacts we've had with that person. That might be phone call, in-person, telehealth, collateral contacts, and contacts with you. So with some of our clients, we may have 30 or 40 contacts with them. So that would give you some information. If you had 5 or 6 people that were using your program in a given week, there might be something going on at your workplace, but there would be no way of identifying who is actually using the program. And that's really important for an EAP to be successful, so that employees know they can call us and not worry that you will know what's going on with them personally. Another big program component is that there's no cost to use the EAP for any of the initial counseling services. So if somebody does require ongoing assistance, there would be a charge, and I'll explain how that works. Her website is Fully Effective Employees, FEE-EAP.com. All of our drug-free business clients have the same username and password, which is a lowercase r 999, and the password is all lowercase FEE-EAP with 3 E's in a row. And on that website, you will find a wealth of information. We have all of our quarterly newsletters and our monthly payroll stuffers archived, a number of resources, articles, self-assessment tools. For example, if somebody's not sure if they might have an alcohol problem, they can answer some questions and that might come back with some indications. It will never actually diagnose, but it will give somebody some more information. There's videos and links to other resources and a whole lot more. So we strongly encourage people to visit our website. When you open up the website, you'll see what looks like a counselor here talking on the phone. And with that blue login bar, you would click Employee Employer Login, and that's where you'd enter your username and password. Now, our EAP is also an employer assistance program. And by that, we mean that we provide extensive help to employers as well as their employees. So as a manager or supervisor or company owner, you can contact us for consultation and support. We can advise you on how to deal with difficult employees. Perhaps we can do some role play, help you make sure that you have all of your paperwork and forms in place if you want to refer the individual to the EAP. We offer training such as these. Ideally, prior to COVID and hopefully after, we'll be able to come on site to your workplace and provide some face-to-face training. But we do have some PowerPoint slides on our website, and we are doing more and more of these virtual trainings. We also offer critical incident debriefings, which is very important for small businesses and particularly those in high risk or safety sensitive jobs like the construction industry, and that if there is a serious injury or a fatality at work, we can come on site and speak to employees about what they witnessed, how they're feeling, how they're reacting, and helping to normalize what could be a very abnormal situation. Employees have expressed a lot of appreciation for their employers when we come out to do this, because it shows that you as an employer care about your employees and you're dedicated to trying to get them help so that they can feel safe going back to work after such an incident. We also help employers deal with issues like workplace violence, sexual harassment, bullying, and fitness for duty if an employee may appear to have a mental illness or other reason why they may be unsafe at the workplace. While we don't conduct these investigations, we can coach you and help you find the appropriate resources for those who can. Now, there are 4 main ways that you can use the EAP program. Number 1 is voluntary or a self-referral, meaning that an individual calls up on their own and initiates contact with an EAP counselor. An informal supervisor referral, a formal supervisor referral, and finally a positive drug test. So I'm going to go into detail about each of these. First, the self-referrals. Now that is about 80 to 85% of the clients that contact us. It's voluntary and it's completely confidential unless the individual discloses that they may be at risk of harming themselves or someone else. And with these pictures here, you can see that it might be a marriage or a relationship issue. It could be a drinking problem or somebody who's very stressed out at work. Some other examples are things like, I've been drinking more and more lately, and it's beginning to affect my job and my relationship. I'm having trouble managing my temper. My husband or wife is threatening to leave me, or my teenager ran away. Some other examples, I've been depressed and can't seem to function like I used to. My mom is getting older and she's really having a hard time living on her own, and I don't know what to do or where to turn. Maybe you're losing your temper with your 4-year-old. I'm in debt and I think I have a gambling problem, or I had a positive drug test at work. So with all of these examples, you can see that there's a very wide variety of things that we do. And if you're not sure if this is an area that we address, you're more than welcome to call. And if it's not something that we can help with, we hopefully can find you somebody who can. So when somebody contacts the EAP, the counselor will talk directly with the individual on the phone. It might be a brief call and setting up a time to talk later, or we may be able to help you right then and there. We want to do an assessment to determine the nature of the problem. And the counselor will work with the individual on a plan to resolve the problem. So if I think that somebody could benefit from individual therapy, and that is that last thing they're going to do, then that probably won't be a great referral. So it's really important to get an understanding of what somebody's tried in the past and what they're looking for help with now. And if somebody needs an ongoing referral for counseling or treatment, we'll be happy to make those referrals. I want to state that during COVID, we are currently providing telephone counseling and brief telemental health counseling. So individuals can use a system very similar to what we're doing right now. It's very much like Zoom. However, it's HIPAA compliant. So we were able to give the client a code, they log in, and they can meet with us virtually. And we just ask that they have a private, confidential place to talk. And they can use their phone, as long as it is a camera or microphone or computer, laptop, or iPad. It's very easy and it can be very helpful for folks. And when we do make a referral for ongoing counseling, every attempt will be made to match the client up with an appropriate resource that's either covered under their health insurance, or if they don't have health insurance or a very high deductible, we can try to find them something under a sliding fee scale. And then a big component about what we do is that the counselor will then follow up to make sure that things are improving and that the individual was happy with the referral, or maybe they haven't called. And when we follow up, that's a reminder that they probably should make that call. Or they might say, you know, it wasn't helpful, I need something else. So a follow-up is really important in terms of making sure that your needs were met. The second way that people can use our program is an informal referral. And this is when somebody might have a personal problem that you're aware of as a supervisor. For example, let's say John's mom died, and you know that John's mom died and that he's been really struggling, and he's maybe shared that a lot at work. So you might say to him, hey, John, I know your mom died. Why don't you give the EAP a call? They're a confidential service. They might be able to provide you some support, maybe some resources, and it'd be really good for you to do that. Because let's say John has asked for some time off to fly home and see family, and he's really been depressed and having a hard time, you know, kind of coping with work, and he's beyond the time of having sort of bereavement leave. So you might say to John, you know, we really hope the EAP can help you because if you have to keep missing work or we start to see performance issues, we may have to proceed with disciplinary action, and we're going to then make you a more formal referral to the EAP. So why don't you go ahead and give the EAP a call? Now, at that point, it may be very helpful for you to know that John is getting help and that he's contacted the EAP. But unfortunately, we can't share that information back with you. So if you were to call us and say, I referred John to the EAP, did he make contact with you guys? We'd have to say, unfortunately, you'll need to check with John. And the reason for that is because our program is a confidential program, people wouldn't feel comfortable calling and using our services if they were afraid that we would be sharing information back with you as the employer. So the only reason that we would do that is if he was at risk of harming himself or someone else, or if you had made him a formal referral to the EAP, which brings me to number 3. So number 3 is our formal supervisory referral. And this is a very valuable tool that you can use as a supervisor. Because now, let's use the example of John, that John is now missing work and he's had some complaints from customers, and employees are complaining that he's not doing his fair share of work. Now you have a performance issue, and you may know or believe that the reason he's having a performance issue is because of him grieving his mom's loss. But you would be referring him to the EAP as a formal referral for performance, even if you know that there's a personal problem. And when you do that, you'll call and ask to speak with the on-call counselor. You'll explain the situation. The counselor will help you initiate paperwork for a formal supervisor referral and talk with you about how you can talk with John about his performance. Again, any personal information that John might share with us won't be disclosed to you, but we will get back to you and let you know if John made contact and if he's been cooperative and following through with our recommendations. So it's important to let John know that he does need to make contact and give him a time frame to do that, and be very clear about what your expectations are. So we want to emphasize that if John doesn't contact us, you would then not be able to terminate him for not contacting the EAP. However, because we're an at-will employer, you may decide to terminate him for poor work performance, or you may decide that he's already earned a termination, but you're giving him a second chance by contacting the EAP. So I want to make sure that people understand the distinction. We can help. You can't terminate someone for failure to get counseling or contact the EAP. But if you didn't have an EAP and you had this situation, you might have to terminate him. So it helps you feel like you've done the right thing by referring someone to the EAP and offering them help. Whether or not they choose to take it is up to them. So as a manager, why would you want to refer an individual to the EAP? Well, it's always more cost effective to assist employees who have personal problems that are impacting their work performance than it would be to terminate and rehire, recruit, and retrain someone new. And it provides employees help if they wouldn't necessarily know how to get help or know where to turn. And if the situation is serious, you're intervening and getting an employee the right help. An example that I have is we had a small employer who had a young female receptionist that had recently moved to the Seattle area, and she had been working with them for 3 months, and she was doing a great job. She was bubbly, she was helpful, and people really loved working with her. And right after she finished her probation, on month 4, she started coming into work late, having kind of a bad attitude, becoming very irritable, and she even broke down in tears a couple of times. And people were afraid to approach her. So the manager consulted with me, and we made her a formal referral to the EAP because she clearly now had performance issues. And when she contacted the EAP, what we learned is that she had come to Seattle with her boyfriend, and she was starting a new and exciting life with her boyfriend in a new city and a new job. And in the 4th month, her boyfriend broke up with her and moved back home. And she was now here in a new city with no friends or family. And she was very concerned that the only thing she had was her job. So she was afraid to tell her boss what was going on in her personal life. So by having the EAP and having someone to talk to, we were able to get her counseling and offer her support and resources. And in a very short period of time, she turned her performance around. And the employer was much happier to have her on board, and she also was much happier. In a situation like that, if you didn't have an EAP, you probably would have ended up terminating her. And certainly she would have had a lot of problems as well in not having a job. So you're doing the right thing by having an EAP to help support your employees. So normally when I do this training, I like to have a lot of interaction, and I like to get responses from folks about their ideas about some indicators of poor work performance. So certainly if you have any other suggestions or ideas, you're happy to have you put them into the chat, and Chris will kind of offer us some feedback if anybody had any other suggestions. But here are some major indicators of poor work performance. Absenteeism. Is somebody coming to work late? Missing Mondays, asking for time off, spending too much time away from work? Is that person having poor relationships with coworkers or supervisors? Has performance started to decline or deteriorate? Attitude is a really difficult thing to measure, but a lot of employers have issues with bad attitudes, and that is a performance issue. Mistakes. Is somebody making a lot of errors or mistakes? Or is that person having emotional outbursts, whether it's being irritable or angry or making threats or crying at work? And somebody who puts a lot of demand on a supervisor's time is someone that has a performance issue. If that person is always asking for extra help or too many questions or complaining about other people or about the job, that's also a performance issue. Now, I like to ask people, what are some reasons as a supervisor that you might not want to refer an employee to the EAP? And here are some examples. 1, some supervisors have said that they're afraid of making the problem worse. And what we know is that once a personal problem begins to affect work performance, the problem has already gotten worse. And if you ignore it, it's very unlikely that it's going to get better, and chances are it will get worse. But if you deal with the issue, you can prevent it from getting worse. So your intervention will not make it worse, it will make it better. Some supervisors fear that an employee may retaliate. And again, you are the person in charge. You are the supervisor. And if an employee retaliates because you are offering assistance, then that is also another performance issue. And if you are able to rehearse and practice and be clear about how you make that referral, there should be no reason for an employee to retaliate because you're not terminating them. You're offering them help and a chance to turn their performance around. Some supervisors say, well, that person's my friend. We used to be coworkers and now I'm their supervisor and I'm uncomfortable because this person is my friend. And my response would be, if this person is your friend, wouldn't you want to get them help? If you had a friend that came to you with a personal problem that you weren't working with, would you ignore it or would you try to get them help? The EAP doesn't terminate people. We help people. So this is an opportunity to help a struggling employee get some assistance. Not sure if I should get involved. Well, if you don't get involved, we will predict that the problem will get worse and you will absolutely have to get involved and probably terminate. So it's better to get involved, and the earlier you can identify, recognize, and work on resolution of problems, the better success you're going to have. Maybe you're not sure if it warrants a referral to the EAP. All you have to do is call. And you can call anonymously. You can give us your first name and say, I work with one of your company clients, and I don't know if I should refer this person. And we can walk you through it and help you make a decision about whether it's an appropriate EAP referral, because not all referrals are, and we'll talk about that. Don't know how to deal with it. Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to help you know how to deal with it, and we will support you every step of the way. So there are some, as I mentioned, types of referrals that are not appropriate. The best kind of referral is when you have had an employee, like the example I gave, who had a 3-month period, or maybe it's a 3-year period of good performance. And now their performance has started to decline and you have some real concerns about them. So you know that something must have been going on that's contributing to poor work performance. It might be a problem with a boss or coworker, and it might be a personal or physical problem. And that is an opportunity for us to intervene, because you can say you've been a good performer and something's happened to create a decline and we're concerned about it. So something has happened. And another appropriate referral is someone that's highly motivated to keep their job, and the concern about the possibility of losing their job is going to motivate them to want to make changes. But the kind of referral that's not appropriate is an employee who's always been a bad performer. It's probably been a wrong fit or a bad hire from the start. And chances are this person may have had continued performance issues in other jobs. So if somebody comes on and after 3 months, or they're heading towards their probation, or maybe you've struggled with them for a year and there's never been a period of really good performance, chances are it's not the right fit, and we're not going to have a whole lot of luck intervening, because it may not have been a personal problem that's contributing to what's going on. Now, as a supervisor, it's very important to document performance problems. So what I say to supervisors is, if you notice that someone is starting to have a bad attitude, or maybe they're coming in late a lot or asking for a lot of time off, that would be the time that you would want to start documenting. Maybe just keep a little note on your phone or on a piece of paper in their file, and you may never need it. It might pass. But if you do need it and you're trying to approach an employee constructively about concerns about work performance, you want to have all of the information right there so that you can say, you've come late 4 Mondays in a row. You've asked for time off every week since the last. We've had 4 complaints, and here's the examples, so that you're not giving sort of arbitrary or personal examples, but very concrete, constructive examples, and being very specific. And be very, very careful that you don't have your own sort of opinions inserted in anything that you document or talk about with an employee. So you don't say, this person is depressed, this person has an anger management problem, or we've even heard, I don't like this employee. We don't want to hear that. So when you're meeting with the employee, we're happy to coach you and walk you through how to do it. And as I mentioned, how to initiate the right management referral forms. But you always want to let the employee know that whatever they talk about with the EAP is confidential unless they're at risk of harming themselves or someone else. And the only information we're reporting back is whether or not they made contact with us and if they're willing to follow our recommendations. You're remembering to show the positive, focus on the good points, that the goal is to offer that person help. Be clear about a specific time frame for improvement. Don't leave it gray. You cannot have any more absences or complaints from customers within this period of time or for the next year. If we see any more incidents of this, you will be terminated. And never let the employee be a volunteer. So if you're meeting with the employee and they try to deflect you and they say, I'm already seeing a counselor, I don't need an EAP, I'm fine, or, I'm going to set my alarm, I'll set 2 alarms, and I'm going to go to bed earlier and take vitamins, I don't need an EAP. You would then say to them, that's great, I'm glad you're doing that, but we still want you to contact the EAP. So you never want to diagnose, you never want to tell anybody or write anybody up for having depression, a mental illness, being angry, unless they've earned a termination. Then we can talk about anger management separately. But you don't want to diagnose. You told me you're alcoholic. Don't put any of that in paper and don't diagnose. You're only focusing on the behavior that you see. Now, there are different types of drug testing, and there are 4 main types, and those are part of part 4, which is doing your drug test, which is the final way that you can use the EAP. We first have pre-employment drug testing, and we want to make sure that you all understand that by having a pre-employment drug testing, even if it's the only drug testing you do, sends a very clear message to employees that we don't tolerate drug use in our company, and we're going to screen out drug users with pre-employment drug testing. So if somebody can't stay off drugs long enough before they apply for a job, knowing that you test, then they're not going to be somebody you want to hire. So believe it or not, we do have employers that are hiring people that have had a positive drug test, and then they refer them to the EAP. And we really strongly advise you not to do this. Almost every time that employers have done this, they've ended up in the end having to terminate the person because they already have a drug problem. The other piece about it, though, is that we recommend that you have at least random drug testing as well, because if somebody stays off drugs for a pre-employment drug test, they may continue to use drugs for the duration of their employment with you. And if you don't have any other form of drug testing, you wouldn't know what that was. So random drug testing is used as part of a drug testing program. Drug-free business can help set you up with a random drug testing program and put people in a random pool, and then they'll notify you when that person needs to be tested. And if that person tests positive, we'll work with them. The other way that random drug testing is used is if somebody has returned to work after they've been referred to the EAP for a positive drug test, and they go back, and we recommend that they be tested 6 to 8 times randomly throughout the year. And so they're going to go back into that random drug testing pool. The third way is reasonable suspicion, and that's if an employee appears to be impaired at work. Drug-free business offers reasonable suspicion drug testing training. It's not something we can go into detail today, but they do offer a free training, and I would encourage you to talk with them about signing up for that. It can be very helpful to understand how to do it and what the protocols are around it. And finally, we have post-accident. And most companies will have a post-accident policy that says that if an individual is involved in an accident that requires any kind of medical first aid or intervention, that they're automatically tested. And that's just part of your safety protocol. So when we do a positive drug test, the employee will sign a last chance agreement and be referred to the EAP. And again, we can help you with those forms. Now, the employee can choose not to contact the EAP, and then they would be terminated, or they can contact the EAP. And when they do that, we will do a drug and alcohol screening, which will include things like a psychosocial evaluation. We want to find out what the person's drug use history is, how often, how frequently, how much, And then also if it's impacted their legal, financial, work, or relationships, and if they've ever been in treatment before. And we also want to see how they view their situation. And we look at the results of the drug test, because if somebody tells us they smoked a joint at a party and their drug test levels are very high, we know that's not consistent with what they're telling us. And if somebody does have very low levels and they tell us that, and there's no other significant history, we may not think that there need to be further intervention. So if we don't think that there's further intervention, they would sign their last chance agreement. They would do a return to work UA. And if that UA is negative, they would return to work. And they would know that if they test positive again, you may terminate them as part of the drug testing policy. So if they think they're going to have a hard time staying off drugs, then they need to let us know so we can get them some help. But if the EAP does determine that there may be a drug and alcohol substance abuse issue or a need for treatment, we will refer them to a state licensed treatment agency, because they can do a formal assessment and a diagnosis. And if treatment is recommended, the EAP will then refer the employee for treatment. And that does not have to be where they were assessed. It can be any state licensed treatment agency, as long as it is licensed and meets the type of treatment criteria we're recommending. And usually people want it to be covered under their health insurance. So once an employee enrolls in treatment and they can provide a negative return to work drug test, we will return them back to work and give them a return to work letter to Drug Free Business, letting them know that they can then return to work. And in certain situations, employers might say to us, well, when can my employee come back? Or an employee saying, well, I want to go back. I want to go back. Well, they have to meet that criteria that I just mentioned. But if somebody, for example, has been using marijuana regularly for a very long period of time, it may take a long time for that THC level to come out of their system. And it may be up to 30 days. And so we don't always know. It's very person dependent. Depends on their size, their weight, their use history, or what type of marijuana they're using. So sometimes the oils take longer to come out of someone's system than smoking the flower. So sometimes we'll recommend to somebody that if they want to pay for their own drug test, and the results would come back to us, not to the employer, we can determine if they're still showing drugs in their system, so that they know when they're ready to actually go back and retest. But it isn't an exact science. There's always going to be a little bit of gray there. But once the employee does test negative and they go back to work, the EAP will then monitor and provide ongoing support to the individual for up to 2 years if they need it or request it. And we think this is really helpful, because when people complete a drug program, treatment program, oftentimes they get back involved with coworkers or friends that might be using, and the temptation is there again. We don't want them to start using again or lose their job. So the more support we can provide, the better. And so that can be very helpful in keeping people away from drugs or alcohol again. So employers will often ask us what types of treatment are available. And we start with the least intensive and work our way down just for education purposes. So drug and alcohol education might be recommended if we think that someone doesn't warrant treatment and may not have a substance abuse problem, but they may be abusing or could be heading in that direction. And so we like them to go to like an 8-hour education program, and they sign off that they've attended, just so that they're really aware that continued use to the level they're using could become a problem. And again, we don't want them to test positive on a subsequent test. Another would be outpatient treatment, and that can be 1 or 2 times a week for a short period of time. Intensive outpatient could be anywhere from 2 to 5 times a week. And we also want to emphasize that treatment can occur during the day or in the evening, depending on a person's schedule. There's also a lot of virtual meetings, especially right now. So if you have an employee that says to you, well, I can't go to treatment because I have to work, we can always try to find treatment that can meet someone's scheduling needs. Residential treatment is often used for long-term treatment, often after somebody's been in inpatient treatment and they need to transition, or they need to be in a sober living environment, or they need to be in longer-term treatment away from family or friends or the environment where they were using. And inpatient treatment is the most intensive type of treatment. It's usually anywhere from 15 to 30 days, but a lot of insurance companies won't cover beyond 15 days. So people often have to transition from inpatient to intensive outpatient unless they want to pay privately to continue their inpatient treatment. And sometimes people will need detox before they can actually enter inpatient treatment. Most insurance companies will not cover inpatient treatment unless somebody has tried the less intensive types of treatment and not been successful. They want to make sure that they're using the most cost-effective form of treatment first. So I've covered all of the 4 ways that you can use the EAP as a supervisor or manager. And I think that we couldn't not address COVID because it's obviously a very prevalent issue right now for employers and employees and pretty much everybody all over the world. So the EAP can be a really great resource for people if they're struggling. Some of the main issues that we see people dealing with are things like anxiety. So there's a lot of not knowing about the future. Will I get it or not? And if I do get it, will I be sick? Could I die from it? Will a family member pass away as a result of it? When will I get the vaccine? And when will we go back to being normal again? So a lot of anxiety about uncertainty and about not knowing what's happening. And grief and loss. There's a lot of loss involved with COVID. Loss of the ability to go and have dinner with a friend at a restaurant or go to somebody's house and to be in person at work for some people. And there's lots of losses of just, having celebrations, families that could get together for the holidays or for graduations, birthdays, anniversaries. We've basically had a whole year of celebrations that we've missed. Loss of vacations, loss of loved ones, whether it's from COVID or other illnesses, and perhaps not being able to be present at their funerals or a celebration of their life. Isolation. This is a really big deal because a lot of your employees may live alone. And so maybe they stayed home alone for all of the holidays or their birthday. And maybe they're feeling very isolated and lonely and depressed. I mentioned the fear of illness. People are also experiencing a lot of mask and social distance fatigue, feeling like they're just really tired of this whole thing. And parents, parents are struggling tremendously. Maybe they have to go to work to your job sites and, they had to arrange or pay for childcare that they couldn't afford. Maybe they're leaving young children at home who are older, unsupervised for long periods. And parents are struggling with working from home, doing virtual learning, and worrying about how their children are suffering by not being able to socialize with other kids or play sports or be in school. And obviously, people have some pretty grave financial issues with the uncertainty about layoffs, lack of work, etc. So we like to offer some tips for ways that you can cope during a pandemic. So you may have seen some of our mailings that we've sent out with some tip sheets on how to handle issues related to COVID. If you haven't and you'd like them, please let me know. Send me an email. We have some workbooks and some other sort of resources that might be very helpful for people. But generally speaking, I like to tell people to write their concerns down. It can help their anxiety and help them sort things out on paper. So maybe you're concerned about finances and how do I figure out my finances? Is to spend some concerted periods of time focusing on writing things down and maybe problem solving and then putting it away and watching a favorite TV show or playing a video game or talking to a friend. And while it sounds kind of silly, gratitude journaling has been very helpful for people and forcing themselves to sort of sit down and keep a notebook of 3 things that they're grateful for every single day. And by sometimes just changing the way that we think and focusing on the positive, we can feel better. The other is to start planning for the future. The idea of maybe writing down, maybe in August, I'm going to go camping or on a vacation, or maybe I'm going to plan a big celebration with my family next Christmas where we can all get together. It gives you something to look forward to. And so if you can start thinking about the end of this time, it can make you feel better. I often tell people who are anxious or stressed to try to accept the things that they can control and the things that they can't, that they can let go of. So we can control our thoughts, our behaviors, our beliefs, how we treat others. But we can't control the behaviors or thoughts of other people or things that have happened in the past. And there's even things that we can't control, like how soon we'll get a vaccine. But we can control how we social distance and wear masks. People can often think about things like meditating, doing deep breathing. There's lots of great apps and resources that we can recommend. We encourage people to eat well, to exercise, and to practice good sleep hygiene by going to bed at a regular time and taking care of their sleep rather than going to bed on their phones or watching TV. And we encourage you and all of the people that you work with every day to check in with each other, to see if you can reach out and play online games, have a virtual phone call, reach out for support. And if you don't have support or anyone to talk to, or you feel like you need more intervention, to call us and we can help you provide some support. And if you need it, provide long-term counseling. And we want to focus on the fact that even though this has been a very long year, and we're certainly dealing with a lot of political unrest right now and some uncertain times, it's temporary and things will get back to normal. So like I mentioned, we hope that you're receiving the mailings that we're sending. We also send quarterly newsletters, one for employees and their family members like this one here, and then also one for HR managers and supervisors. So if you're not receiving these, please let us know. They are available on our website. And really, if you can send them or post them in common areas or post them on your intranet, the more that you can create awareness of the EAP and encourage people to use it, the more that it will be used. I did want to mention, most of you do not have 2 additional programs that we offer. One is our Work Life program, which offers online programs for mental health and relating to balancing work and family. So elder care and child care resources, discount programs for gyms, some online shopping programs. There's a lot of self-assessments there. So some more assessments about, am I depressed? Do I have an anger problem? Lots of videos, links to other sites, and some really good webinars that are pre-recorded and also live on a monthly basis. And we have a legal and financial program, which offers 30 minutes of free legal advice per issue. There's good financial counseling. So a person can talk with a financial counselor about whether they should declare bankrupt, how they consolidate their bills, maybe foreclosure, is that an option or not? There's an online will program that's free to create your own will. There's an online financial planning program and budgeting program. They can provide assistance with preventing identity theft and how to help set themselves up for recovery if they do suffer from identity theft. And there's a number of do-it-yourself forms and resources. And there's also some do-it-yourself will software programs. So all of this is available for a very low rate. So if that's something that you'd like to add, please, again, let me know and we'd be happy to add you. So in conclusion, we've talked about a lot of things today, a lot of information. We want to encourage you, if you have any questions, concerns, want some more information about how to use the EAP, not sure about how to make a formal referral for performance or how to use it as part of your drug testing program, that's why we're here, and we're happy to walk you through and explain that to you. I want to encourage you to maintain documentation, even if you never need it, to not diagnose employees. Don't recommend a form of treatment. I didn't mention earlier, but if an employee appears to be impaired on your work site and you want that person to go for, say, a blood and sort of breathalyzer or a drug and alcohol test, please make sure that you can escort them there. Do not send them home in their own vehicle. And if you send somebody home, just to sleep it off, then it would be harder for you to test them down the road because you may not have had that evidence anymore. So again, if you're not sure what to do, call us and we can walk you through that. And remember, if you're making a formal referral to the EAP, make sure that it's only based on performance, not for a personal reason. So again, I want to thank you all very much. I'm going to open this up for questions. I'm hoping that Chris has some questions in the chat. And if you don't feel comfortable asking questions now, again, feel free to call our local number, 425-454-3003, and you can ask to speak with the on-call counselor, and any of our staff would be happy to answer any of your questions. So thanks again for your time.